I'm going to pause. Well, good afternoon. It's Patty Henderson here. I am the Math Marketing Manager for Pearson Canada. And Sharon, I think we have a party of one right now. So we really want to welcome you to our Mathology.ca online information session. And please feel free to ask any questions in chat, and we will continue. We're recording this, so we'll keep the questions moving and the presentation, and we'll cover off most of the questions near the end. I think you'll find by the end we'll have covered many of your questions, so if you can wait to the end for the answers to come up, and we'll go from there. So really happy to have you here today, and let's get started. So when we first started thinking about creating something new for math, and especially around something that would be an online support for teachers, we did a lot of research around the math teaching journey. We took a look at this often time-consuming multi-step process, and I think you know this, it goes from long-range planning to short-term planning, teaching and preparing, to assessing, reporting, and professional learning. And looking at all those steps, and we started thinking about how we could create some supports for our Mathology series. We know that something digital should be able to make that journey a little bit easier, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. So Mathology.ca, its proposition is this. It really is intended to simplify and enhance the math teaching journey through a smart use of technology. We also would like it to streamline teacher planning, the teaching process, assessment, and professional learning. So that's that journey we just spoke about. And for those educators that currently have either the Mathology Activity Kit or the Mathology Little Books, it is a really great way of seamlessly integrating all of those components in one place as the online teacher's guide. So what is Mathology.ca? It really is a simple online tool for teachers. It contains rich math activities and pedagogical supports, and the key functionalities that it has, and we'll walk through those today, will be search, plan, teach, assess and track, and also professional learning, all wrapped around the curriculum from your province, pedagogically sound supports, and those rich math activities that we know teachers are looking for, that they're at the right level for their students, and wrapped around your curriculum, which is really important. So I thought I'd take you for a quick stroll through Mathology.ca today. We'll go there now. So when we first started building Mathology.ca, we wanted to create a very simple way for teachers to search for great lesson plans, again, around curriculum, around our Pearson learning progression, which you might know about as well, or around any math topic, currently at grade 1 and by next fall, grade 2. So I'm going to walk you through some of the search components, because what we wanted to do is take that big fire hose of information that's out there and really carefully curate what the lesson plans that the teachers are searching for. So I'm actually going to start with search by curriculum. Every province has its own curriculum in here. This is a national program, and Sharon, for today, I'm logged in. We had a group of Ontario teachers as well, so what you're going to see is the Ontario curriculum at the moment. Just know that the Alberta curriculum, your current one, is a match in there, and will be there as well. So, and some of these strands are exactly the same as what you see in Alberta. So we'll have search by curriculum. You'll see the 5 strands here. And when we look at the overall expectations, we're in number sense at the moment. I will just click down, and you'll see a drop-down menu, and that drop-down menu will look at specific expectations from the curriculum, and you'll see beside each of those expectations there's a small search panel. So we're looking at an expectation that looks at representing, comparing, and ordering whole numbers to 50, for example, and a teacher might want to know what's in Mathology.ca that helps with that. So I'm just going to hit the search button. And you'll see when I scroll down that we have lots of rich activities that support that specific expectation. I'm just going to scroll down slowly so you can see the cards that we have and lessons from our activity kits, as well as one of our math little books that supports this as well at the Corn Farm. And so when we go through each of those specific expectations, you'll see that there's lots of support there. So it's a great way of narrowing down your search for really good lessons. It's a search by curriculum. The other piece I'm just going to quickly show you as well. Pearson Mathology is wrapped around and built upon a foundation which is called the Pearson Learning Progression. And it's a great way of knowing where your students are and where they need to go next. And so providing teachers with those great next steps. It is another lens through which you might want to look for really great lesson support. And so across the top, you'll see the strands and then some conceptual threads. So the first one I'll just pull down would be the first one there under numbers telling us how many and how much. And we're looking at applying the principles of counting. So that's a pretty simple one. And you'll see that our learning progression has come to life here. And I'll show you exactly where we are in that continuum. And this is at grade 1. And there are great lessons that support each one of these pieces on that curriculum. So I'll just click on one. You'll see for that piece, we're at Acorns for Walea, which is a kindergarten math little book as well. So that is 2 areas of searching. The last one that you might just want to take a look at a math topic and see what lessons are in there. So I'm going to go into my favorite one, which is skip counting, and hit the search button. So I'm going to do a bit of a scroll here too. So as you know, skip counting happens throughout the curriculum, and you'll see that we have lots of lesson supports for skip counting here as well, from activities through some really great math little books. So that is, again, another way that you can narrow down that really big fire hose of great lessons that we have here. What I thought I would do next is walk you through an actual lesson. You'll see on this search panel, home panel, 3 items that are pinned here. And the pinning process is a way of pulling a lesson and putting it on your desktop so that you're ready to go on that day. And so we have a math little book called On Safari, as well as a lesson on skip counting. So that's the lesson we're going to focus on today. When we're inside a lesson, you'll see across the top, there's a section called About, Details, Assessment, and Related Resources. And we'll walk through each one of those so I can show you what is in this lesson. The About the lesson will give teachers lots of ideas around what the lesson is about, the activity time, the group size that is suggested. We also know that there are a lot of teachers that don't have a math background because they're generalists, and we wanted to help them as well. And so each one of these lessons has a great section on some content background to help support that teacher. We'll look at the focus for this lesson. This one, of course, is skip counting by 2s, 5s, and 10s. And we also have the curriculum and what's uncovered looking at the curriculum. A lot of teachers like to use some cross-string connections, and so we've pulled those out as well. And they're there. And exactly where you're going to be on that learning progression, it's highlighted in blue. In this case, for skip counting, it's uncovering 2 big ideas from the curriculum. Numbers tell us how many and how much, but also quantities and numbers that can be grouped or partitioned in equal-sized units. So that's the About. Usually that first page you get in a print teacher's guide. The details, this is really where the lesson begins. And so you'll see here, this is actually one of our activity cards from our activity kit brought to life. Across the top, you'll see the strand, the materials that are to be used in this activity. And then hot linked here, you'll see that we have curriculum correlations as well as line masters, really easy to find here. We have them in both PDF and Word. So the PDF, if the educator likes it just as it is, they can download it and use it. Oftentimes teachers would like to modify it based on the students they have in front of them. And so the Word documents are quite handy for that. When we get into the lesson, each lesson is short and easy for the teacher to prepare for. You'll see that there are instructions for before this activity, what to do during the activity. We also have how to differentiate, so accommodations, both extensions and accommodations for students who might be struggling. Now, the piece that most teachers, when they make their own activities, especially when they're trying to engage students, the piece that they often find is missing is that consolidation piece. How do I know that my students are getting what we want out of this activity? And so the consolidation piece you see in blue on the right is a great support for teachers to do that, as well as I'm scrolling down to what to look for. And so those are the watch fors for teachers as the students are doing this activity. It's quite powerful. Just below that, we've also included probing questions. These are often questions that are hard for teachers to come up with on the spot. So as the students are doing this activity, they may be walking through the room and seeing the students do the activities, but it's often hard to understand and know what students are thinking and then covering their thinking as they're doing the activity. And so those probing questions will definitely help the teacher as they do this activity. I'm going to scroll down a bit further, and you'll see a section that's called images. These are actually the teacher card and the student activity that you can project on a whiteboard at the front of the class. So the activity that we just took a look at, this is the physical card that comes in the kits, the front. And the back of those cards, again, a really powerful tool to help teachers know where their students are at that activity and help them progress. And so I spent a bit of time on the back of this card because it really helps step by step show that teacher, this is what you might be seeing as a student is doing this activity, the behaviors and strategies they're trying. And here are some in the moment next steps that will help those students progress through that activity. So that's the back of the physical card. Every activity has a student card, and the student cards often have a side A and a side B, one that's a little bit more difficult and one that's a little bit easier. And so we're looking at Gord, the groundhog, and the skip counting activity, and that is the front of the card where it's skip counting to 50. And the next one is a little bit simpler, so it's skip counting to 20. And if you can imagine projecting this at the front of your class using your whiteboard, the students will come up and do this activity front of class. We have a hundreds chart, which is always useful to have. You'll see a little button at the bottom right-hand corner which says print. Each one of these pieces are printable. So I know this doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does where the activity cards might go missing. This is a great way to make another one should that happen. And last but not least, it's also helpful for the teacher to see what a completed card looks like. And so this is a model of what that looks like. We have over 100 activities at grade 1, just like this, and they're fun, they're awesome. They really help teachers understand where the students are and how to progress. What we did learn as we were working on Mathology.ca is that this is a great platform and a place to help teachers have some job embedded PD. We know it's really hard for teachers to get away during the week, during the month for some PD. And so we wanted to build in some videos, really short videos that will help teachers in the moment understand what this activity is about, why should I do it, and what will the outcome be. And so on the right-hand side, I move my cursor over here, you'll see a panel that says professional learning. In that panel, you'll always get a 1-minute video, and I'm going to play this now so you can see what type of videos are here. And this one is helping with Gord the groundhog.
When we skip count, we organize objects into smaller groups of equal size and count by the number of objects in each group. For example, there are 2 cubes in each group, so we skip count by 2s. 2, 4, 6. Or there are 5 cubes in each group, so we skip count by 5s. 5, 10, 15. No matter what number we skip count by, the last number said represents the total number of acorns. Do your students realize that no matter how the 50 cubes are counted, the quantity stays the same? Or how the fewer cubes in each group, the more groups there are? During consolidation, discuss how skip counting may help students, both at school and at home.
And so Sharon, that's a representation of the videos that are supported with each one of these lessons. And we also provide lots of interactives that the teachers can use at the front of the class too. So That is the details of a lesson. I'm going to share the related resources, and we'll talk about assessment next. So under related resources, you'll see that we have some fantastic mini lessons. As the teachers are doing this activity and they are working with the back of that card and seeing where the students need to progress, these mini lessons help extend what the teachers are doing with these students and how they might group them to support them. So what does a mini lesson look like? Here's one that's on grade for skip counting. And by mini, it is a mini lesson. That will support those students. And you also see that the line masters are again included and linked here as well. And at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that this mini lesson can be printed. We also know that some students may need some help. They might get stuck at one point or another. And so for skip counting, there's two places where students typically get stuck. The first one is students will have a difficulty with skip counting sequences. We know that happens, and so we have created a mini lesson that supports intervention for that. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll scroll down a bit. So this is our first intervention, that mini lesson that supports students that might be having that difficulty. Again, you can print it. And the second one that we found with skip counting would be that students have difficulty understanding that the number of objects will be the same, whether they're counting by ones, twos, fives, or tens. And we wanted to create a mini lesson that supports that one as well. So here's that mini lesson that will support them. And again, it can be printed. We also wanted to get some extensions for students that are raring to go and may want to take this a little bit further. So students are ready to use skip counting to solve problems. What can we do to help support them? We'll have a mini lesson here that has them working with the number line. The other types of supports that we have under related resources that I know most folks are really happy we've put this in here, possible misconceptions. So with skip counting, oftentimes we'll see that when skip counting students sees the number as labels rather than quantities, it comes up quite a bit. So here's some in the moment what to do supports for those students that might have that misconception. Again, supporting those teachers that may not have a math background. After the lesson, there are always next steps with Mathology.ca, and I think that's one of the pieces that most teachers really appreciate. It's one thing to know where your students are, but it's really helpful to know what my next steps might be, both in class and at home. So this section looks at after the lesson. Next steps in class. Here's another game that they might want to play that helps supports the students. And if you have a good home school connection, we have a really great section here to help parents or guardians or caregivers or other family members that might be helping their child with Mathology at home. And there are some line masters that might support them in that as well. And again, this can be printed. The last two sections I'm going to share with you here, there is a word wall that helps. This one, of course, is looking at skip counting and total. And the bottom part are the related lessons. So once you've done an activity like Gourd the Groundhog, there are ways of either extending or going back to help support that next lesson and the next steps there. So I'm going to take us into the next part, which is assessment, which is another strong piece of Mathology.ca. This is going to look, I'm hoping, when I scroll down, a lot like the back of that activity card that I just showed you with the 6 boxes. When you create something that's digital, the promise is that it will make lives a little bit easier. And so this one is a piece where teachers can build their students into a classroom. And as they're circulating with their students and looking at the behaviors that the students have as they're doing that activity, they can very quickly drag and drop their students into that section. That's important, but again, the really important piece here is how am I going to help, say, Jeff and Ioana when they're stuck right here? What are my next steps? And so you'll see right at the bottom, the next steps are there, and they're in the moment. So again, helping teachers to find out where their students are and take those next steps to help them progress, which is important. So that is the assessment piece. A quick look at analytics. So we've gone across from left to right under the 4 about details, assessment, and related resources, there are a few more pieces I wanted to share with you about Mathology.ca before we get into the questions. So analytics. Analytics is a great way of taking a look at where your students are. You might be coming up towards parent-teacher night, or it might be approaching your report card time, and you'd like to get a sense of where my class is, where I might fill some gaps or add a few things, and you might want to know how your students are doing. So I'm going to start first under class analytics. I'm going to select a classroom. And this is Miss Christine's classroom, and you can see that Miss Christine has done 11 of these activities. You can see that by doing those 11 activities across that middle part, 13 of 56 expectations have been addressed, as well as 11 progression indicators. So we're early in the year with this one, and you can see the lessons that have been done. And this is a very simple dashboard. We wanted to give teachers a sense of, am I on track with this lesson? Which ones are in progress that I'm still working on, and which ones need attention. And you can see by the 11 lessons here that Miss Christine's on her way. There are some lessons that are underway. There are some that need a bit more support. She has currently 5 of 18 students still in that first square on the back of that card, and she'll need to do some next steps to move those students along, and she has the tools now to do that. So that is our class view assessment. And then if you're having a parent-teacher night and you might want to show teachers how they're doing, we will pull up one of Miss Christine's students, which is Francesco, and you can see which assessments have been completed, how many expectations, and the indicators as well. And you can see here there are some places where Francesco is doing awesome, and what's in progress, and it looks like you may need a little bit more support around counting on and back. And so that is the analytics dashboard that really helps students and teachers know where they are and where to go next at a glance. The other piece that teachers have told us they really, really appreciate about Mathology.ca would be plans. And so Mathology.ca is a very rich resource. There's, as you can see, lots of lesson plans using activity cards. Also, there's another whole series of lessons that support the Math Little Books. And teachers are wondering, how do I get started and use these? There's 2 ways you can look at it. There's a way that you can create a new plan, and this is typically not where someone who's new to Mathology.ca would start. I'm going to tackle that one in a moment. I wanted to start where most teachers start, which is they're at the beginning of the year, they have a brand new resource, and they really need support on where do I start and how do I get there. And so under sample plans, we've put together some 3 options, and these are based on teachers giving us feedback on how they progress throughout the year, whether they start with number strand at the beginning of the year and pivot out to patterning and back to number, so it's a bit of a spiral. Some teachers will start with patterning first. Patterning is great to start with in September because you get a chance to go outside and gather materials that help with patterning. So there's a variety of ways you can approach this, and we wanted to give you an option for each. So I'm just going to take you into sample long range pathway option 2. And so this one, down the left-hand side is the piece that most teachers appreciate. And so you'll see investigating repeating patterns. So this is a year plan that starts with patterning first. You'll see that there's the first couple of weeks, we'll look at patterning. So you're right in that first week, which is September, the 3rd week of September, once you've gotten to know your class. And what does that pull up? It brings up Midnight and Snowfall, which is a Math Little Book that helps support that idea. And then you may want to go into some activities that help extend. And so you'll see we've really narrowed down where you might go in that first couple of weeks of the school year. So the activities are nicely laid out for the teacher. when we go into creating patterns later in that month, you'll see that they're still in Midnight and Snowfall. The math little books are really rich, and they have fantastic teachers resources that support lots of different activities. And typically a teacher can use a math little book over a span of 2 weeks. There's so many things you can do with those stories, and they're very, very engaging and empowering. And the activities are usually one class. And so those are the activities there. And I could go down to later in the month, we're into counting, and you'll see now we have 3 math little books that support counting and more activities as well. So that lesson plan support is really helpful. And most teachers like that when they first get used to a new resource, that planning's there. Once they get used to it, or they might be a really experienced teacher and they love to build in some of their favorite things, we've given them lots of opportunity to do that. So I'm going to create a new plan, and I'm going to start with a blank one. I'm going to call this NB. I'm going to save that. And what that does, you'll see down the right-hand side, there's a section that's called favorites. As you are going through your lessons and getting used to each one of these lessons, and you might love them, you can favorite any one of these and it will bring up your favorites into this panel. And what you can do now is you can title this folder. It could be counting, or it could be skip counting, whatever title you want to put there. And then you can simply drag and drop your favorite lesson plans into that. Add a lesson. You might want to pin it to the front of that dashboard that you saw at the beginning, because that's what you're going to use the next day. You might write a quick comment about, I use this lesson plan. It usually takes me 1 class period and maybe the consolidation the first half of the second lesson. So that's an example of a note. The other thing that this allows you to do, if you have some really great activities, lesson plans, or even videos that support math learning, at the bottom right-hand corner, you see Add Non-Mathology Lesson. What that allows you to do is embed a URL from your favorite place. It could be a Google Doc, and that will build right into this lesson as well. So you're adding on to a really rich base already with some materials of your own that you really love. And so that really is the walkthrough in a very quick fashion on Mathology.ca. We've taken you through each of the sections that help support teachers knowing where their students are and how to progress, and some really great supports for teachers that may not be math specialists. So that is our walkthrough. And what I'm going to do next, we have a few more slides to go, and we'll talk about Mathology.ca. This is what's inside. Typically, that's the question once we've done this quick walkthrough. What is inside right now, and what I just showed you is grade 1, which is live now. In grade 1, I mentioned that we have 101 math lessons, and those have been derived from the activity kit. We have 34 kindergarten and grade 1 math little books in there as well that you can project. We also have the learning progression. And we have 100+ professional learning videos. So there's some great learning videos that you just saw that support what to do in that lesson and why I'm doing it and how to progress. There's also some longer videos that will help tie the math little books and the activities together under the big ideas from the curriculum. And we're just working on those right now. Grade 2 is coming. So we are starting to build that. It'll be built over the summer and released in beta next fall. And so what we're looking at grade 2, we have 185 lesson in there from the activity kit. We have 38 grade 1 and 2 math little books, the learning progression, and 160+ professional learning videos that will help teachers with job embedded learning. And the next question comes usually is, how much does Mathology.ca cost? So this is what we're looking at. And we've tried to come up with a couple of flexible options for you depending upon your budget, how your school or your district is structured, and you can go from there. We have a 1-year subscription per teacher, which is $140. We have a 5-year subscription that's available. It's a 5% discount versus the 1 year, and it comes out to $665, which is equivalent to about $133 a year. We also have bundle pricing, and so any of the schools and districts that have the print resources already, whether it's the activity kit or the math little books, when you add Mathology.ca to those bundles, there's an additional 5 to 10%, depending on which of those components you have. So the next screen I'm actually going to bring up, because this is usually where the questions begin, will be the Q&A. And I see that there's a bit of chat going on. So I have a feeling you might have a few questions, Sharon. So I'm going to pull up the Q&A screen, and just know if I can't answer any of the questions that you raised today, I will certainly find out the answers for you and we'll communicate them to you. But we also have your local person who can send you much more information after today. You'll see in the center of the screen is Lisa Vant. You might already know Lisa, to be honest, and Lisa's contact information is there. So I'm going to ask, do you have any questions? Anything that you need clarified from today's presentation? Now's the time to ask away.
Yeah, Patty, it's Heather. I don't think Sharon knows that she's muted. I'm not sure if you can unmute Sharon.
I can do that. Thanks, Heather. Sorry about that, Sharon. I think you should be unmuted now.
Am I good now?
You're good. Sorry about that, Sharon.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, how are you?
Good. That's fine. Okay, I just have a couple of questions. First of all, about curriculum, because we're going through a curriculum change here in Alberta.
Yes.
Will it be new curriculum aligned?
Yeah, yeah.
For that?
That you ask a good question. So the curriculum that came out around Christmas time for math, it's aligned perfectly to that. And so we'll ask Lisa to send you the current curriculum correlation. We do know that you've had a recent change in government, and that curriculum may change again. We're not sure, but we're guessing about that. And so once we know what that might be, we'll go in and start making any modifications that we need to do. But just know, because these resources were built upon the big ideas from the curriculum, oftentimes those big ideas don't shift too drastically. And so the correlation, we've done a couple of correlations that these will support you no matter what. But if there are any gaps, we will certainly look to fill them and share that with you.
Okay, that's great to know. Yeah, I mean, it's just easier for teachers when they're planning to be able to say, oh yes, I have spoken to that, you know, those exact ones. And when everything's aligned, that makes that process so much easier. Okay, another one was on the assessment board that you had, the individual assessment board. When you showed that, it had a little edit pencil, like you pulled the kids down onto each part of the progression.
Right.
And there's a little pencil beside each kid. So I'm wondering what that actually lets you edit. I'm assuming that's an edit pencil for that child.
Oh, great. It allows you to put in any notes that you might want to take.
Okay, so you can just add notes for the child, right? Or yep. Okay, great. No, that's what I wondered and thought that was probably the case, but yeah, wanted to check on that.
Fabulous.
Yeah, no, I really love lots of the features that you built in. Like the what to look for and the next steps are really key for teachers, I think. The ability to print everything, that's great. The ability to, you know, the mini lessons, just having everything so quick there. And it's come a long way in being user-friendly, I think. So.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that. With Mathology.ca, we actually started with this idea first, but needed to backtrack a bit when we did a lot of our research, knowing that how important the print pieces are, especially at the early grades. And so we developed those first and made sure that they were ready to go. And then Mathology.ca, we could then put that content into it. And so it's coming after the print pieces, but it was a necessity to make sure that it could help support teachers in the way that we had hoped. And so I'm glad to hear you say that. It's been a work of love by a lot of people at the office.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I really also like the short videos, the professional learning videos. I think that's great because, you know, delivering professional learning in that way is just easier for teachers, I think, because there's easy access and it's ongoing. They can review it again and again should they need to, and it just gives them a lot more confidence when they go in, right?
That's what we were hoping. Exactly. Yep.
Yep. So I love that. I also really like that you can search by the curriculum outcome or by the progression. I like both of those, and or by topic. I mean, the first inclination of teachers is probably going to be by topic, but then knowing that they can actually go by progression, I think is very powerful. So, yeah, well done.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'll pass that along to the smart folks who are working on this. And we really appreciate you being with us today. It's awesome.
Okay, and no, I do have a question, like as an administrator, I guess, wearing that hat. My understanding, and I'm not 100% sure on all the details here because Amber did that part, but we did it as a pilot, like our schools have done it as a pilot. And so we have many of the materials already. So are you saying with this pricing, we will need to then subscribe after this to keep up with the .ca part, right? Is that correct?
You know what? You're asking right at the right time. So this year, as we're bringing Mathology.ca on, we do have what's called a loyalty option for any of the schools or districts that have already invested in the print pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It will help you with getting either a 5 or 10% discount, depending on which ones you have. So if you have both the activity kit and the Math Little books, you would be able to get Mathology.ca at a 10% off. And you can decide whether it's you're going to toe dip for 1 year or invest in it for the 6 years, which is a bit better again. So my take on this would be Lisa Vant will know what you have, and that's a conversation with her that you can have.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Good. Okay. Well,
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time to inform me. That's great.
No problem. I'm glad you came, and I hope the weather is getting better down there.
Well, we're headed for a little rain, I think, but you know what? We need it, so that's okay.
Okay, and at least it's not snow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Sharon. Well, thanks again so much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.